Welcome back to the Postpartum Wellness Show with me, your host, Dr. Kristal Lau. Before we start, a very quick disclaimer. I am not your medical provider or medical practitioner, and I'm not here to give you medical advice. So if any of you have a medical concern, please consult your health provider to get advice from them. As I promised, I'm going to be sharing with you some of the things that I have used in my lectures for my peers in academia as well as clinicians. So today's episode, we are going to focus on what is the postpartum period? How long is postpartum really about? So we first need to understand what's happening right now. The current clinical definition is 6 to 8 weeks after childbirth, which means that we as in clinicians and physicians, we expect most mothers and birthing parents to take up to 6 to 8 weeks after childbirth to return to as close as possible to their pre-pregnancy state. But I can tell you that is absolutely not enough time. Firstly, there is a paper published by the Lancet, a very well established and reputable scientific journal. And they did a whole series on maternal health actually in December of 2023. And in one of the review papers, where they looked across a ton of research done on the complications after childbirth, no matter how minor it is, they found that majority of health problems after childbirth starts to occur after the 6 to 8 week mark. This is quite jarring. And these research papers that they've looked through and reviewed and systematically reviewed as well, right? For those of you who understand what that means, great. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the term, what that means is these researchers, they look through across a lot of research and they use some analyses to really combine all of the data to really plot out and show us what the problem is or to illustrate the real issue. And they've done it. They've showed us that a bunch of problems crop up after the 6 to 8 week mark. But this is the interesting thing for me. It took this series and this paper to show it to our faces only 2 years ago. But all of the research that they reviewed have been existing for a while now. Not only that, we rely so much on evidence-based data. We forget that humans, women, mothers, and birthing parents are going through this for generations, for centuries. They have lived experiences. They have complaints about their health. They have concerns about their health. But why are we still not listening to the lived experiences of many mothers and birthing parents? That just baffles me. But hey, I'm glad that now we have even more data to back up the lived experiences of many women and birthing parents. Now, the other reason that the 6 to 8 week mark really doesn't quite catch is that when we look at all of the potential complications and even minor injuries of childbirth, or even just being pregnant for 8 to 9 months and going through all of that, there is so much for the body to recover. Do you think 6 to 8 weeks, just common sense, you as a person, male, female, man, woman, whatever, if you go through such a grueling experience where your entire life force and energy is directed towards growing something or pouring into something for almost a whole year, and then you go through an intense period of energy bursts where you have to give it your all. And then within 6 to 8 weeks, you're expected to get back to so-called pre-pregnancy state or your before state. It just sounds ridiculous. When we think, again, the lovely comparisons that is made is comparing pregnancy and then childbirth to marathons and athletes and the type of energy expenditure, energy usage that's required during this time. We have our athletes, pro athletes, even those of us in school who used to do athletic activities, we are encouraged to have a lot of recovery time and to be very well rested during this time as well. But that's just not the case for a lot of mothers and birthing parents. So we need to really ask, is this 6 to 8 week clinical definition still valid in today, 2026? Is it still actually serving the mothers and birthing parents? And is it actually serving us, especially the clinicians who are providing the care? Clinicians means not just the OBGYNs, the midwives, nurses, our family doctors, general practitioners, physical therapists, nutritionists, the lot, clinicians. You know who you are. And even our non-clinical partners like the doulas and the nannies and the babysitters and the confinement nannies, of course, those with the Asian cultural practice of postpartum. We need to really ask, is this 6 to 8 week duration and definition still valid? But I want to take you kind of back in time, because we also need to ask the question, where did this 6 to 8 weeks definition come from? We are now in a time where it's so data driven, so evidence based. You want to change something in a guideline, they push so hard for you to show that you need to do it and that the proof is out there. But where did it come from? Was there papers done back in the past, or a lot of studies done to show that, wow, it does take only 6 to 8 weeks? But when you actually dive down into the little bits and bobs, where, for example, we talk about the changes to the heart, changes to the hematology system, the blood vessel system, changes to hair, skin, lochia. Lochia is the vaginal discharge that comes out after childbirth, changes to the vagina, changes to our pelvic floor, changes to our abdominal muscles, changes in the brain, which, by the way, another episode, we're going to talk about what they found so far. Changes to the breast, changes to muscles, to our bones, the whole body. You find, as you look through each of these systemic and organ changes, that there is a huge variety of time in which it takes to return to as close as possible to a pre-pregnancy state. So why did we still say 6 to 8 weeks? I have tried so hard to find, and I could not for the life of me find a good evidence or data to point me towards who decided it was 6 to 8 weeks. The best conversation I had was with a midwife researcher. His name is Dr. Andrew Simon. He's retired now, and he was with the University of Dundee in the UK. Lovely, lovely man. I so enjoyed our conversations. And I asked him, why? Why is it 6 to 8 weeks? And even he could not give me a direct source. The best explanation that he gave me was perhaps the origin of our 6 to 8 week postpartum timeframe was due to a traditional ritual in Catholicism, meaning for those who are practicing Catholics. And because the ritual of Catholicism is when the mothers, after recovery from childbirth, at the mark of around 4 to 6 weeks after having a baby, they will go to the church for a ceremony of purification and thanks for the safe delivery of the baby. So it is a blessing ritual. And this is kind of the best explanation that I received. And it kind of clicks, doesn't it? Which means, and I guess you can say I'm being very blunt, that even in our very modern Western world where we talk about having so much evidence, postpartum, 6 to 8 weeks, is very, very likely based upon a traditional religious ritual, which is not surprising when we think back about how modern medicine evolved from the times, olden times. This is not a history lesson. I'm not a historian, but I do like to read a fair amount here and there. And we do understand and know enough that a lot of science and modern medicine came from a lot of traditional practices from the West back in the Middle Ages, Dark Ages, whatever we want to, whatever the experts call it. So let's think for a moment, right? 6 to 8 weeks is really not enough for what we know now about what happens during postpartum, because postpartum doesn't just affect the mother-infant dyad. It doesn't just affect the mother and birthing parent. There is the other parent, the fathers, the non-birthing parents. We have to think about people who adopt babies who have surrogacy and have their babies that way, and they still, to some extent, have a somewhat postpartum experience because it's all about the birth of a child, no matter how the child was birthed. And then you step into this time, you expect a lot of changes to happen socially, physically, physiologically, which means your body responses to the child as you engage with the baby and the child. And we'll explore this in more episodes, of course. So I want you to challenge this notion, especially those of you listening who are practicing clinicians. And if those of you who are sitting in boards and are looking to push for some change in this area, let's work on redefining this duration. So, how can we redefine how long the postpartum period should be? My proposal is that it should be up to 2 years. Now, this is not just based off on those social media reels that you see who like, wow, postpartum should be up to 2 years because of all the changes the mother and birthing parent is going through. Yes, but there is a very good public health and early childhood development reason for my proposal. To put briefly to you, recall the first 1,000 days of life concept. What the first 1,000 days of life is an early childhood development concept where this is the time from conception, meaning the egg is fertilized, up until the child is 2 years old, where if we can provide the best environment in terms of actual built environment, their nutrition, their care from the parents, and everything for the child, if we can provide the best for them in the first 1,000 days of life, then they have a very high chance of not only succeeding in life, whatever the definition is for everybody, but also being in a healthier place mentally, physically, socially. And then that translates to economic health as well for them in the future. So the reason I propose 2 years for postpartum is because it directly aligns with this concept. And when we can really ensure that our parents are best supported when from when the time the kids are born up until 2 years old, then we are able to optimize things for the whole family, regardless of the type of family, single parent family, two-parent family, however the family is. So this is why 2 years. So my proposal for redefining the postpartum period is actually really simple. It's just 2 years. And it also aligns with the WHO recommendation of having a break of at least 18 months or 1.5 years before trying for another child. And it also allows for a lot of time for the mother and the birthing parent to recover, not just physically or physiologically, but mentally, and to prepare for the changes and to prepare for the next child, even, or even the potential of the next child. It puts them at a pretty good place. And it doesn't rush the mother and the birthing parent or the family into having more and more children. And yes, this happened in the old days, but we didn't know any better, did we? Pregnant women used to smoke. A lot of people used to also smoke around pregnant women. I mean, still happens today, but a lot less. We gave thalidomide to pregnant women back then. It causes a lot of congenital malformations in the fetus, and then we stopped that. So things evolve, things change. And that's the beauty of science, of modernity, is to always look and see what's not working right now and what things need to change. And frankly, we shouldn't be waiting for more and more evidence because the evidence is already there. And not only scientific evidence, we have a lot of social evidence that parents, especially new parents, are wanting more. And you also see this in people's decisions to not have children or to have children later. But end of the day, if we don't start changing these definitions from a clinical perspective and a health providing perspective, then honestly, no matter what type of money we want to throw at any postpartum problem or birth rate problem, it's not going to get solved, because the crux of the issue is we still view this crucial time after childbirth as only 6 to 8 weeks. and not requiring much thought after that. Now, I hope this has been an eye-opener for you, or it has already just confirmed what you feel about the postpartum period, or the 6 to 8 weeks just isn't enough. Now, what I will do for you is I will upload a picture of some of the slides that I refer to when talking in this episode. And I'll link you as well to the Lancet paper. Actually, I'll just upload them for you because it's available publicly. So sometimes I just worry that the great internet, the links get broken and you can't download these open source papers. So I have them. I'll put them in my free membership vault for you to download. Go sign up really quickly and then you can have access to all of that. And of course, if you have any thoughts, please either comment wherever you're listening to this or send me an email. Let me know what you think, because I'm sure that all of you who have thought about this long and hard, or have a feeling, a gut feeling that something is just not adding up, I think you probably have a lot to add, because when I gave these lectures to my peers, they had a lot of things to say after that, because so many of them are parents, whether they are parents of younger children or they have teenagers already. It just clicked for them. But as always, with change, we need a lot of people to move things forward. And I really hope that there will come a time sooner rather than later that perhaps this episode has inspired you guys to take a step further. Please reach out to me as well if you want to collaborate on things. I'm always open to do that, definitely when I have time in my schedule. So with that, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all in the next episode. Take care.